Good evening. Welcome to the Snake Doctor Hour.
Sounds more like Alfred Hitchcock, but okay.
Well, I put it in Welcome to the Alfred Hitchcock Hour.
Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. I don't think so. I'd rather hear Odie Hawkins.
Okay. I'll stop trying to pretend to be Hitchcock.
Okay. Thank you. What are you doing for us today, Mr. Hawkins?
I'm going to take you to chapter 32, 31.
32. 32.
32,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
But before I begin that, I'd like to just simply say her name before we start.
Yes.
All right-thinking people, I think, are fighting to have this young woman receive the justice that she deserves. And that's all I'll say about that.
Right.
I have to give Vanity Fair some shout-outs. I'm usually kind of critical of magazines that do nothing but show you, silly-looking clothes and the latest hairstyle and
All that.
how I got my face made up by Mr. Gucci Poochie or whatever.
Right.
But they had Ta-Nehisi Coates as the guest editor for this particular issue, the September issue of Vanity Fair. If you get it, get it.
Okay.
Okay. Let's
Contact
go.
them and they should mail you a back issue.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Let's go on to chapter 32.
32. And what are you reading, sir?
This
Today.
is from the book called The Snake Doctor.
The Snake Doctor. By Odie Hawkins. Yes.
And here we go.
All right. Chapter 32.
32. The next day. Remember, Kofi is having a bit of a... Why you like my ring?
That's quite a round ring. It more looks like a metal washer, but whatever turns you on.
Oh, I can't fool you, can I?
Looks like something to your bidding ball. So, all right.
Well,
All right.
I gave it a try.
You were married to it too, I understand.
I gave it a try. I thought maybe I could have everybody rush out and get a washer and stuff.
Yes. Get a bidding ball.
Get a washer. The next day, it took Kofi an hour to find a taxi driver who was willing to cope with Jamestown at high noon. I want to charter your taxi for a 2-hour trip to Jamestown. Sorry, I don't go there. Charter, 2 hours. Jamestown? Zoom. Jamestown 2? No! Finally, a desperate little guy who needed the money more than the others agreed on the charge for on the charge for an exorbitant rate. Where are you, Brother Kwame? I'll pay you half when we get there, and the remainder when you bring me back to my hotel. That's my guarantee that you won't run off and leave me like the last guy did, off to the ghetto. Jamestown in the middle of a humid, rainy season afternoon.
Just the thought of it.
Yeah, just the thought of it, rain. This is supposed to be the middle of the rainy season. It hasn't rained in quite a few days. Why? Oh, I think it is because the weather is changing. Because of this global warming thing. It always used to rain in this time. The stench told him he had pierced that smelly curtain that hung around the area. The driver glanced up into his rearview mirror. What business would an Obruni have in this part of Accra? First stop. Wait here, I'll be only a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Pito Bar. A few of the regulars turned to check him out. The Obruni is back again, but he's cool. He's Ananse's friend. Kofi went straight to the bartender. Tell Ananse that I'm here. I meet him in Sir Lord's bar within an hour. The bartender continued polishing glasses, but he nodded agreeably. Next stop, the whatever bar. Tell Ananse that I'm waiting for him in Sir Lord's bar. I'll only be there for an hour. Tell him that I have good news for him. Next stop, Sir Lord's bar. The Don King-haired owner wasn't on the scene, and the ABC lager that was brought to his table was surprisingly well chilled. The fridge is in order again. He sipped his beer in a pleasant haze, a bit zapped out by the humidity and the overwhelming poverty surrounding him. These people don't have a snowball's chance in hell to make it up out of this. He tried not to stare at the people walking, limping, crawling past Sir Lord's bar. A few of them came inside for a tot or two of akpeteshie, the homemade liquor that was like a gin, and then back out onto the heat-stroked road. Where in the hell are they going? Within a half hour's time, he had seen some people pass back and forth a couple of times. Where the hell are they going? Where the hell are they coming from? It was a scene from Seven Beauties, the film directed by Lena Wertmuller with Giancarlo Giannini that showed the horrors of a concentration camp, a scene that captured the endless drudgery of the lives of the inmates. Ananse staggered into the bar, flanked by his entourage, who took up their designated positions, one at the bar who could see who was coming in, and one on each side of the entrance. The positions seemed casual, but they occupied strategic points. So, Kofi, how is it? He banged his right hand against Kofi's outstretched palm and gave him the middle finger snap that made Kofi feel that his finger had been snapped out of joint. Ow.
The rough life.
Some people do it harder than others. Kofi could tell from the sour grain smell on his breath that Ananse was drunk, and from the fragrant aroma in his bushy hair and his tattered clothes that he had been smoking weed. He decided to cut straight to the heart of the darkness. Ananse, listen to me closely. I'm only going to say this once. As you can see, the meat on the taxi that is running on me. Oh, don't worry about that. I told you the transportation would be available for you when you came again. You can send that man away. The grandiose drunk. How many of these have I seen in my short life? No, I'm not going to send him away, but he's going to drive me back. He's going to drive me back to my hotel as soon as we finished our business. Look at you. You have a beer. I want one. Hey, Charlie, ABC, okay? He shouted to the bartender. Bimba! The bartender responded and was at his table with the frosted bottle of ABC a minute later. And give my homies the same, okay? Ananse demanded. Yes, please. The bartender answered in a shaky voice. He was obviously not pleased to be supplying free refreshments to the neighborhood thugs. Ananse, I'm going to be straight up with you about this. I can see that you're loaded and all that, but it has nothing to do with what I'm about. If you want to be a clown and blow a golden opportunity, no problem. Remember, my brother, there was a time when I didn't know your poor ass, and I can very easily go back to that time. Are you getting me? Ananse took a big swallow of his beer, shook his head from side to side as though he was trying to get rid of cobweb from his skull, and answered in a super sober voice. Yes, Kofi. Yes, yes, please. Are you sure you're with me? Yes, yes, please. Kofi took a sip of his beer and took a deep breath. All right, here it is. I can sponsor you. That takes care of the school fees, etc. I've written my parents who love Ghana and asked them for their support. I'm 100% that they will give me everything I'm asking for. Now then, Susan of Susan's Place. Oh, you're talking about Susan Amagashi, the lady with that school with the funny sounding name. I never knew her last name, but she has agreed to help you. I never knew what her last name was, but she had to be to help me. This is Kofi talking. Kofi decided to ignore the tears that slid down Ananse's cheeks. Now, here's the way it's going to go. Listen to me closely, because I'm not going to repeat myself. Sulis is willing to take you on, working on the grounds at her place. This will give you a little income. But I have to warn you, she's very strict and will not tolerate any bullshit. Ananse held his head in his hands, allowing the silent tears to flow between his fingers. I have often prayed for this help. So that's it. I gotta go. I want you to meet me at Susan's place tomorrow evening. Let's say 7-ish. We can work out the details then, okay? Ananse answered, okay, and carefully placed his head on the table and started snoring.
Let's hope it wasn't okay. All right.
Beer and weed. Plus akpeteshie, whatever. Next stop, immigration, same day. Kofi sat in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs lining the corridor that led to the immigration office. He had determined early on that it would be to his advantage to dash the woman who was passing out the numbered cards that would decide who was going to be 5th or 50th. I want a low number, he whispered to her as she slipped 2 5,000 CD notes into her hands. The blasé Ghanaians who witnessed his action nodded their approval. Yeah, the Bruni knows how to get action. The people who had probably been there 3 hours before him didn't voice any objections. If they had the CDs, they would do the same thing. The woman who was passing out the cards gave him number 20. You won't have long to wait, not long at all, she whispered back to him. A half hour later, his number was called. A snooty-looking little woman took his card and asked in very crisp British English, tell me exactly, precisely, why you are here. I've come to extend my visa for 1 month. That's only done for special circumstances. You'll have to see Mr. O'Kine. That's exactly the person I would like to see. Follow me, please. Kofi followed the quick-marching little bureaucrat through a large office space into a section of the space with individual offices. Please be seated. Mr. O'Kine is busy at the moment. He'll be with you shortly. Once again, Kofi sat in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs waiting to be called. He could hear Mr. O'Kine speaking in a loud, crude voice to someone. Now just tell me, who the hell you think you are? You have overstayed your visa by 3 months already, and now you want to extend for another month. Ha! You think because you are white that you can come to Ghana here and break our laws? Do what you damn well please? No, sir, Shut your mouth! Shut your mouth while I am speaking. Just because we don't have the manpower to go out and check on all the foreigners for overdue visas, it does not mean that we are not concerned about this situation. Why didn't you go home before your visa expired? I intended to, sir, but I was doing archaeological work up north. Poor excuse. Poor excuse. We don't need your kind in Ghana here. All you're interested in and getting whatever you want out of my country in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to deny your extension, and if you're not on the plane back to the U.S. by this weekend, I'm going to have you arrested. Are you getting me? Yes, sir. Very good. You are dismissed. Kofi looked at the tall, lanky white man with Van Dyke beard and the khaki pants and shirt shuffled out of Mr. O'Kine's office. He looked as though he'd been whipped. Next! The voice inside the office boomed out. Kofi stood up, took a deep breath, and took the 5 steps into Mr. Joshua O'Kine's office. Big fellow, heavy but not fat, a grim expression on his dark brown face. Brusque. Ha! An African American. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Now let's hear your sad ass story. Well, sir, I'd like to get a 1 month visa extension. Has your visa expired? No, sir. Let me see your papers. Let me see your passport. Kofi handed the man his passport. Why are you so pissed off? About what? So, your visa has not expired, but you want a month extension. Why? Well, sir, the reason is a bit complicated and somewhat personal. I would like, the man behind the desk seemed to swell up with anger. What the hell are you talking about? Complicated, personal. Those are not reasons for a visa extension? How dare you? Maybe this will help explain. Kofi unfolded Susan's note and laid it out in front of Mr. O'Kine's eyes. He glanced at it and then picked it up to read. Kofi was surprised to see a warm smile spread across Mr. O'Kine's face.
Oh, Jesus.
So, you need an extension. Yes, sir. And you shall have it. He reached into the top drawer on the right side of his desk, pulled out a rubber stamp and ink pad, slammed 1 month extension on the proper page in his passport book, and reached across to shake his hand. You should have told me that Susan sent you when you first came in here. I tried, and thank you, sir. Be sure and tell Susan that I gave you proper treatment. I will, sir, I will. Next!
Better than a dash.
Kind of great peachy eyes.
Yes, I know.
Good. Now that that's been done, I can relax a bit. A soft knock, knock, knock on his door forced him off of his bed to drape a towel around his naked body. Yes? Telegram, Mr. Brown. He opened the door a few inches. The messenger boy held out a Western Union envelope to him. Just a minute. He left the door with the telegram to get the messenger a dash for delivering the telegram and to give him a message to deliver. He scribbled, Dear Susan, Susan's at, Dear Salena, Susan's at 7 tomorrow. Affectionately yours, Kofi. You know where this person lives, right? Oh, yes, sir, I know. I've been there before. Good. Take it to her. He peeled off 10,000 CDs, 2 500 CD notes. The boy looked at the CDs with greedy eyes. Thank you, Mr. Brown. He closed the door and sprawled back on the bed, the towel saronged around his waist. Thank God for this fan in the ceiling. This place would be like an oven otherwise. He ripped the Western Union envelope open. Dear Kofi, look like you're having a very interesting time in Ghana. Concerning the Ananse project, we are 100% behind you. We'll help you to do whatever needs to be done. Give our fondest regards to your friend, Salena. Much love, Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad.
Kofi sprawled on his hard bed and stared at the slowly whirling fan. What a hell of a place this is, this Africa. It feels unreal to be here, to be back here after all these centuries. I'm going to work for reparations from African Americans for us when I get back home. Maybe you could use some of whatever we get to help our people over here. The irony of thinking about the place where his ancestors had been shipped to as home, at his ancestral home as over here, made him smile. Wonder what life would have been like if Dad had married Grace and I had been over here in Ghana. It would have been a hell of a lot different, I could see that. He sat on the side of the bed. Wonder why he wouldn't have more stories about what happens to an African-American head when he comes to Africa. His grandfather had given him a few notions to consider as an Afrocentric bookstore owner. Think about it, Kofi. There are books by African Americans, not a whole lot, not a whole bunch, but they are there. In my opinion, they tend to come in under several categories. Number one, although I'm not framing this in any particular kind of order of appearance or status, dig. Number one, there are the romanticists. These are the people, male and female, who trip off to Ghana, Nigeria, Angola, and maybe even Egypt and Kenya, and return all aglow with the wonderful cultural experiences they've had. Especially if they've gone to Egypt. They will punch you in the head with the fact that Egypt is in Africa. That one has always puzzled me. Why would anyone find it necessary to argue with some racist history books or some stupid racists about Egypt being in Africa? I mean, look at the map. Egypt is in the northeastern corner of Africa, obviously. Okay, I have to cut them a little slack. After all, when you've been programmed all your life to believe that you came out of the heart of darkness, the dark continent, then I can understand why a little pride in building the pyramids and all that is understandable. Then we have the axe grinders, the polemicists who have their weird little points of view, who use Africa to justify whatever theory or theories they come up with. Sometimes, I think some of them are honest about what they believe, what they want to promote, but there are charlatans in the woodpile here. Then we have the War Thomas people. These are the ones who can't wait to return from Africa to write and speak about what they so overjoyed that their ancestors were fortunate enough to have been enslaved. I'm so much pro-speech that I think all of these points of view should be heard and read. The problem, I think, is that we have too few creative writers who write about this subject, and too many bad writers who write so badly about the subject. But I look at how well there's so many Jewish writers have written about Israel, the Italians about Italy. Check out Luigi Barzini's The Italians, Solzhenitsyn about the Russians at a particular time, the French about the French, the Danes about Denmark, the English about England, and yes, the Africans about Africa, Soyanki or Chebe, Sambani or Yono, Clark, others. And then we get to the African American of Africa and the subject becomes purely academic. Maybe it's my family background, but I don't want only academic revelations. Nor do I want to have B-class hacks who write about whatever with equal passion. I want to have genuine, soul-feeling people, honest African American writers, give me an honest appraisal of their emotions, stuff that they've really experienced what happened in their guts. Sometimes when I've read stuff written by African American writers, journalists, whatever they choose to call themselves, I get the feeling they simply read the travel section of the LA Times. Thought about it, about how they could blacken that place up on Senegal, Liberia, Zaire, Kenya, Uganda, wherever, and embroidered around the base. I'm not whipping any brush across it's everybody's back, of course, but I do know what I'm saying is true. I own a couple of bookstores. I have a finger what the deal is. Kofi stepped into his tepid shower stall thinking. Too much thinking makes Kofi a hungry boy. And now we're going on to chapter 33.
Oh my.
Yes, yes indeed. I have to pause for a moment in order to get my glasses squared away. They keep sliding down on my nose, and I think it's because my eyesight is slipping.
Odie. That's funny.
Just a joke. Ah, that's better. Dinner at the country kitchen. And where's your lady friend this evening, sir? Oh, she had something else to do this evening. I'll have the ABC, of course, and the palm nut stew with fish. Ah, thank you. Table number 15 offered him a perfect fish-eye view of the restaurant. The big men who swaggered in, trailed by their wives, girlfriends, and or children. The quartet of women who sat at one table and their husbands at the next table. Clearly a cultural thing, the separation of the sexes. Now, too many young couples. Maybe they can't afford the prices. Here and there, a stray European. People from one embassy or another. His attention was drawn to the African-American couple with the young son and daughter seated 3 tables away. The children seemed to be about 8 and 9 or somewhere close to that, and bored.
Hmm.
The African-American couple wore strings of beads around their necks, African-designed clothes, and seemed to be out to make an impression with their Afrocentricity. The man even had a fly whisk.
Hmm.
Sit up straight, Sekou. You're in Africa, in the motherland. Aisha, don't put your elbows on the table like that. That's considered bad manners in Africa. Somehow the couple seemed to be talking to the general public and were using their children as sounding boards, demonstration pieces. See, we're in Ghana, West Africa, and we know how to behave. Kofi sipped his beer and smiled to himself. I wonder if they have any idea how pretentious they sound. No wonder the kids look so bored. I bet they've been dragged around to every so-called cultural thing their parents could think of. Thank God for Kojo and Akuzwa, for my parents. They could have dragged me off to Africa too at that age, but instead, they gave me the opportunity to come to my own Africa when I got ready. We'll have a lot to talk about when I get back. Emerald, the divinely sculptured waitress, blindsided him with the palm nut stew and an urgent request. Perhaps you would not mind sharing your table with this couple, sir? As you could see, we're full just now. Yeah, no problem. A Ghanaian man and his European wife.
Whoa.
They shook hands as they took seats at his table. The man was almost ebony dark and his wife was pale white with freckles across the bridge of her nose. It didn't take him long to determine that they were a dysfunctional couple. Basil, why must we always have to come here for dinner? Certainly there are some English restaurants in our crowd. My wife, Basil, explained, is from London and she finds the restaurant choices to be too limited to her taste. Well, if what I've experienced thus far is an example, then I must say you're right, dearie. I take it you two haven't been married very long. The couple exchanged looks. How long has it been? It's been 8 months now, officially, but we had an informal period in England that lasted for 2 years before we got married. Basil, the African man, stared down at his menu. Why did this woman talk so much? I was in school when I met Diana, he added a bit sheepishly. Kojo felt no urge to probe, but it seemed that his presence alone was enough to provoke the couple into giving him more information than he needed. The woman was quite outgoing, the man less so. Kofi finally placed the woman's British accent. She sounded like a female Michael Caine from the movie Alfie. A Cockney, not one of the upper classes in any case. The language situation became a bit more ripe after they had each drank a bottle of Star beer. I don't know. It seems that we got on much better in English. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it has something to do with me, the fact that we weren't surrounded by all these big-assed women. Kofi dipped into his stew, sipped his beer, and tried to tune the errant couple out. The stew was too good to need a sideshow, but they were relentless. Are you married, Mr. Brown? Kofi Brown. And no, I'm not married. Well, I can tell you, the man said. It may not be the most desirable state to be in. Then I what you said to me about home, when I sent you needs to making certain that you add enough kipper in your plate, honey. Kofi ate and enjoyed his stew, refusing to be drawn into the domestic minefield across from him. It didn't take a lot of imagination to put their scenario together. He, the African man, was going to school in England, had never had anything to do with any white woman or perhaps any other woman, and along comes Sienna. She gives him an unusual time in bed, freckled white skin, blonde hair, loans him as many pounds as possible, irons his shirts, and at the end of the day asks for marriage as a reward for all of her sacrifices. He marries her out of sheer gratitude and they return to Ghana, where she is clearly unhappy. I've never been to America, Mr. Brown. Is it out there? It's just is it out there as it isn't here in Ghana? In some sections of the South, especially in the summer. You said hot, right? Yeah, yeah, hot. Hot.
No.
The stew was almost finished, the beer half done, time to be moving on. If they have another beer, I won't be able to understand a word this woman is saying. Deanna, I think you just feel the heat more because you're not used to it. Well, can you see bleeding eat or eat it? I eat it.
Yeah, I guess so.
There, the stew is finished. A few swallows of beer left to cope with, and I'll be moseying on down the road. Well, folks, look like it's time for me to call it a day. You're not leaving, are you? I thought we could have another beer and talk about America a bit. I'm completely fascinated with the place. Maybe some other time. I have another appointment to make. Give him one of your cards, Spicer. You can ring us up. Kofi signaled frantically for Emerald to bring his check. He had the feeling he was going to be invited to a menage a trois from the way the Englishwoman was gripping his thigh.
Okay.
The bill paid, he casually brushed the woman's clammy hand off of his thigh and stood up. Nice to have met you folks. I get a run. He glanced at the card he passed the table where the African-American family was enthroned. They nodded pleasantly to each other. The children, he noticed, were looking at their fufu and goat soup as though they wanted to puke.
Not
The
hamburger.
poor kids, they're dying for a couple of Big Macs.
You got that right.
Basil K.S. Latte, Professor, Economics, University of Ghana, Legon. Telephone, blah, 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 blah. He walked a few hundred discreet yards away from the restaurant before he tore the card in half and dropped the pieces into the roadside drainage ditch. Thanks, but no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I need is some who's afraid of Virginia Woolf stuff in my life.
Mm-hmm.
He strode carefully through the gutted roads leading back to his hotel, his stomach pleasantly filled with delicious food and brew, his senses alert for everything. What's that smell? Corn. They use a lot of corn here. Or the kinky in Bangkok, and other odors are a bit more ripe. He couldn't restrain his curiosity passing two small boys feeding a small bonfire. Hey, what are you guys burning? The oldest answered shyly. We're burning the toilet paper, sir. Oh. He had noticed an odd plumbing feature while visiting the Ghana School of Journalism. When directed to the men's room, the toilets didn't flush, and after a bowel movement, the soiled toilet paper was tossed into a convenient corner. Oh well. The road was dark, but he felt no sense of danger. People that he could see only silhouettes said, "Good evening," as they passed him. He felt that the darkness offered him a wonderful cover, an opportunity to gaze into people's lives, into their homes, without being seen as an African-American, as an Obruni. African-Americans bring a lot of emotional baggage to the motherland. He thought about the African-American couple and their children in the restaurant. Looks like some of us just try a bit too much, you know? I wonder if I'm doing that. I hope not. Well, I can think some more about this tomorrow. Right now it's time to get some good African sleep. Too bad we don't have a night maid singing. 10 a.m. the next day. Yes, Mrs. Grace Boulevard Ajayi, please. He was trying for the third time to get through to the producer lady to let her know that he had hooked up with Ananse and that they were on a fast track. The hotel desk clerk, Mr. Latte, spoke softly. One must exercise patience, Mr. Brown.
Oh, yes.
One must exercise patience. Kofi nodded, acknowledging the man's advice, but he still felt frustrated and a bit pissed at not being able to telephone an executive at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation after a series of strange clicks. Mrs. Bolivar Ajayi here. Hello, Grace. This is Kofi. Ah, Kofi. So good to hear your voice. So, how is it? Before he had a chance to answer, the sound was bloated out for a few moments. Sorry, Kofi, I had to give my secretary some instructions. You were saying? She was obviously busy as usual. I just want to let you know that I've hooked up with Ananse, and it appears that we'll have a chance to get out of Jamestown, that he'll have a chance to get out of Jamestown, get an education with Susan Amagashi's help. Oh my goodness, you pulled Susan in on this? You're really dealing with the heavyweights now. She's really a gracious lady. Quite so. I'll have to make her to her place soon. Well, that's it for the moment. She was also instrumental in getting me a visa extension. Good old Susan. Well, I must go. I have a meeting. Drop round when you have the time. I'll do that. Ta-ta. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Things to do. Always something to do. A few postcards to friends, to his ex-girlfriends. Margot and, what's her name? Well, I just put on hold for a bit. Time for a siesta. He felt guilty about sleeping in the middle of the afternoon until he wandered down into the lobby of the hotel and found all of the employees flaked out. Mr. Lottie, sorry to disturb you, but I need some bottled water. The boy would fetch it. Eddie, water for Mr. Brown. A siesta at high noon made a lot of sense. Who in his right mind would want to be doing anything under the face of a blazing noonday sun? The late afternoon shadows brought in the coolness that he was beginning to appreciate. Africa, every day in every way, Africa. Shower, staggered back to the bed, a towel surrounded around his waist. Time seemed to have a different value in this place. He tried to imagine himself in an earlier era. Imagine what it must have been like to go from this indulgent lifestyle, food dropping off the trees, fish hopping out of the sea into your skillet, no ice, snow, Arctic winds whistling down on you from anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that must have been the greatest shock of all, to be taken from underneath the warmth of the tropical equatorial sun to New York and other cold-ass places. I can understand why the Afro-Brazilians and those who were taken to the islands, Cuba, Jamaica, Barbados, Martinique, Antigua, Cape Verde, could feel something nationalistic about those places. They were warm, at least. No, that wasn't the greatest shock of all. Being enslaved would be the greatest shock of all. Being told that you and your descendants would be chattel slaves forever. That would have to be the greatest shock of all. He rolled off of the bed to pour himself a glass of water and stared down at the people on the road. Some walked briskly with head loads on their heads. Others trudged along as they were weighed down with more than they could carry. Mothers with loads on their heads and a baby in the back. I wonder how they do that. An endless procession of poor people. They're poor because they're walking, or maybe they're walking because they're poor. In any case, they wouldn't be walking unless they had to. Those who can afford it are riding. Wonder if this place, this Ghana here, would be as poor as it is if there was no history of enslavement. Gotta talk to somebody about that. I wish it were possible to do a single magic carpet number and bring just a few of our big-time ghetto whiners, the habitual bitches over here for 90 days. Wonder how they would cope without running drinkable water, no flush toilets, no portable color TVs, none of the stuff we've all been accustomed to. Yeah, that would really be a trip. Could I live here? Thought it bounced around in the head several times. Yeah, I could live here. But it would take a whole lot of mindset restructuring. The idea of not doing things on time disturbed him. But what the hell, I would just simply have to make some adjustments. Yeah, I could live here. I could live here someday. 6:30 p.m. Time to get ready for my date with Salena. I hope Ananse remembers that he had an appointment with me and Susan. It would be a shame if he didn't show. That's the end of chapter 33. So,
Wow.
I'm saving the last chapter for tomorrow.
Wow.
Tomorrow is another day. We got things to do. We got eggs to lay.
Wow.
Tomorrow is another day. Okay.
Yes, indeed.
The heat is unbearable. Smithers, bring me another cold gin.
That too.
Thank you.
Anyway, appreciate the reading of 32 and 33 chapters, 32 and 33 of The Snake Doctor.
The Snake Doctor.
Bye-bye.
Should I hold it up?
Yes, please. Both copies. All right, there you go. The Snake Doctor.
This is his brother.
All right. This book can be purchased at Amazon, Author House, Barnes & Noble, or you can go to your local bookstore and tell them, I want The Snake Doctor by Odie
Hey, what
Hawkins.
did you think of the debate? Okay, that's good enough.
Okay. And staying focused, on point. Your website is www.odiehawkins.com. You are also on the author's page of Amazon. And, my goodness, the debate.
Time goes on.
Time goes on. Till next time.
Till tomorrow.
Till tomorrow.
Hey,
Looking forward to it.
hey.
Thank you very much, and we'll see where it goes. Wakanda forever.